that we must attend to. Digital payment platforms across countries. For us in Zimbabwe, I can gladly report that I can make a payment directly using one of the mobile money players into South Africa, into the UK. But the question is, why can I?
The other one, because you're going to get me to a question to Shaibu and Bosco again. But everybody's been talking about single market, and I think the policy formation has been fragmented. John has been, Mr. Bosco has been dealing with 55 different countries. He mentioned 15 central banks are connected to PAPS. But it's taking him for a long time. India has one central bank. China has one central bank. And we're competing, right, in terms of the race, in closing the digital divide, financial inclusion, and all these other major pressures that we're facing. Hisham, you're a policy guy. Are we creating policy in a uniform approach, or Smart Africa is doing their thing, Ghana is doing its thing, South Africa is doing their thing, ECOWAS, the regional bloc, is doing their thing? Where are we from a policy perspective in reference to digital infrastructure? Is it fragmented or it happens?
Okay, thanks for the question. For this, we have to think and to act smart. Yesterday, I have the privilege to assist to the intervention of Dr. Hexel Zuma from South Africa, and he said a good sentence. He said, Africa is not poor, African is poor.
Hisham,
and I believe
you are saying
that
are we centered?
Africa is not smart, but African are smart. When you say, when you get research from Africa, in each country they are not enough good in their country, but once they are leading this question, for this we have to use this thing and tools that we have, and to think about how can we work together in this continent. About regulation in each country, about thinking that we have to move country by country, region by region. It could work, but we have to think big, but we have also to act. We have to act small, we have to act fast, but we have also to act, let's say, small, very, very smart. Because there is a lot of shortcut to work. I'm very pleased to hear that there is collaboration between Nigeria and Ghana for mobile payments. They don't wait all Africa to have this protocol for trade to start working. With this, a lot of bilateral, let's say, collaboration regarding digital to get it working. So we can work under African Union, we can work under regional, let's say, association of countries to move. But also we have to not to wait a lot, because if you are waiting for the best regulation, the best environment to be working together in Africa, we will lose lots of time. And so we have to learn from each other. For example, taking Ghana are very good in mobile payment, fintech. So there's lots of things for as Morocco to get from Ghana. If we take, for example, Smart City, we are, let's say, advanced in Morocco because we did a lot. And also in this area, I will say something very important. Smart City in Morocco didn't start in Casablanca, which is the big city. It didn't start in Rabat, which is capital city. It didn't start in Marrakesh, which is very narrow. It starts in Berkane. Berkane is a small city. I am very sure that nobody in the room except Mr. Kelly from Minister of Health know Berkane. Because it is a small city with only 20,000 citizens. And they start smart city without waiting for the country to do regulation for smart city, to push for smart city. It starts because we have a man, the governor of the city, who is very, let's say, patient of digital. He said, yes, I will get Berkane, the first city in Morocco, to be smart city. And they start working from the beginning. They start from because we have some system talking to each other, have some service to citizen, less paper in administration, and this really become the first reference in Morocco to doing this. It is an example of the way we can work also in Africa. We have not to wait for African Unity to give us all the guidelines. Yes, it's good to have this guideline, this vision. We have 2063 vision, which is good, but you cannot wait until we have the best regulation, the best environment. It will never happen. So as time is fast, we have to move fast, we have to move forward. If we take Europe, the best country in digital is not France, not UK, it's Estonia. And small country, they decide with the good vision to go forward. I believe that in Africa, we can move like this. We can say each country has something to share. We can start to do some experimentation. We need less regulation. I know that we are with Ghana Central Bank, and nobody doing innovation like Central Bank. Believe me, because we have innovation is something we want to be free to develop. Yes, it is sometimes we have to have some regulation for innovation.
I hear you on everything, right? Are we doing it in a fragmented way, or are we harmonized in the way we're regulated? Because if digital infrastructure is the foundation, right? Ghana is good mobile money. South Africa is good with something else, right? Zimbabwe is good in agriculture. How are we moving forward? Because by the time 2063 gets here, a lot of us may be very old.
I think that we are doing the two ways. Yes, the event of today, thanks for Ampere Network for having this event, talking about connection, integration, investment. In this space, we have the chance to discuss together, to share experience and harmonize our vision, okay, which is good. But we cannot wait until 2060 to do that. So we have to move, we have to accept that there's some country can go fast because they have the opportunity, and we cannot stop them to say, yeah, stop, you have to wait for regulation for 10 minutes. We have to accept this, and the same way we have to move with some harmonization for some which is happening. But believe it is easy because also digital infrastructure and solution and with artificial intelligence are moving fast. So if we are doing regulation for tomorrow, we don't know how tomorrow will be. So we need to accept this and accelerate urbanization, accelerate doing the action in some country and having some like this space to harmonize and to share and also to be leading this action in our countries. So as conclusion for this, if we want to be perfect, we have to wait for harmonization. If we want to be realist and to have, because there's, let's say, fights for distance between US, between China, between Europe, so we have to be some way to find our way for doing this and to be in this radar for this. So we have to encourage people who are doing fast. We have to encourage also startups. We have to find a way they talk about Silicon Valley in Africa. Yes, we aim this, so we need to work together and also to learn together and to act together. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. That was very good. The young people that are building the future of Africa digital innovation, they're doing it in front of their laptops, YouTube. Some of them don't go to universities. Some of them are hanging out with their friends, learning how to build games. They learn how to build software systems that are changing agriculture, right? How to solve irrigation issues. People are learning how to build drones, right? So what do you see, Duga and Zagari, what do you see from the developer perspective? I think you guys are more closer to the youth, like me. You know, what do we see? So you guys can go first together.
No, thank you very much. So when it comes to building the human capital in the digital ecosystem, we're seeing a lot of progress in that regard. We're seeing a lot of young people being more interested in AI. When you go to GitHub, you're seeing an increasing number of young people, you know, in the ecosystem building various technologies. So it's quite impressive. Nonetheless, the numbers are not that encouraging because we're competing on the global scale. We're competing with those in Europe and in Asia. And very recently, we did find out that DeepSeek, built its LLM model with just under $6 million US. So it brings a very interesting perspective into the conversation that if $6 million US can build an intelligent model, far intelligent than ChatGPT, because I use it myself and it's far better, then it means that what are we doing in Africa, right? And the funding I know is available because funding is being put in
6
various
million.
states. 6 million is not
A
much,
mansion, right?
right? It's not much. So that funding is available, and we've got brilliant minds in Africa, brilliant minds in Nigeria and in Ghana who are driving the AI, agenda. So you go to Nigeria, you have AI startups focusing mainly on how they can harness, and build our own AI African LLM models. And they need funding for that to happen. And so if 6 million can build what DeepSeek has done, we can definitely do the same here in Africa. And it's important for us to look at how can we start building an African LLM that is able to solve our problems and tell our story at the same time. And so in Ghana, there are various tech companies as well as organizations like Vodafone, where I've worked before, MTN, where I've also worked before, that are driving various digital literacy. So they're given, MTN is, apologies for speaking on their behalf, but MTN is driving AI and robotics with my former alma mater, KUST, which are driving by the engineering department. So they're teaching young students in tech, how to harness AI, how to build robotics, engineering, and that's very fantastic. You go on other, routes on the elementary level up onto the secondary level, various training and capacity into data analytics, which is very crucial. How they can harness the data that's in the environment, transform them into making informed decisions. And so there are bits and pieces of things happening in our ecosystem, and we need to figure out clearly how to have it all done in a very uniform manner, right? And luckily last year, Ghana launched our digital policy. So we have a policy that was launched by the NCA, by the ministry. So there's a component of that is supposed to look at digital literacy, which is the fundamentals. So we talk about the infrastructure development, which is important, all right? And then we'll look at the literacy part, the human capital. That part is the driving force of the digital infrastructure. Because once you put in place we've got the internet connected all of Africa, which various companies are doing that via the Africa 50. We, have 5G in the countries. Look at the human capital aspect as well. How are we harnessing that? And so the conversation really needs to be, how do we drive funding into that space, right? And you had mentioned earlier on that funding has been a challenge, and it's also because we're also not driving the conversation or actually showcasing what we're doing in the tech space in Ghana, in Africa, in Kenya, and of course in the northern part of Africa. The only conversations we see are what South Africa is doing, what a bit of Kenya is doing. So we need to see how we can fine-tune it from a national level to a regional level and a continental level, and present ourselves as these are African tech minds or young African tech minds bringing up innovative and disruptive strategy of tech in the AI ecosystem, and this is from Africa. And this is how I personally believe that we can get funding internally and externally to harness and get more people into the tech ecosystem and grow our human capital in that regard, as well as our digital literacy in that regard.
Hey, let's give her a round of applause. Everyone has given us a very, very good perspective. Large language models drive intelligence, right? So 6 million can do.
So, based on my experience with developer, I would like us to just think about something. So imagine you call out for people to come and work for your organization, and then you have budding young African youth popping in with their CVs, and it's time for them to maybe qualify, and it's time for them to work. And you realize that they don't even know how to use some of these simple ICT tools. That's the reality of some of the people we live in Ghana. So with Developer, we started with a vision to actually empower more girls in technology. And then we started up north. As someone who grew up in an urban city in Accra, I went to a private school. I had access to a laptop. My parents were good. I had computer literacy training when I was growing up. But then the reality hit me when I went to the north, and I was supposed to teach girls full-stack development. Only for us to call for applications and then girls registered. They come to class and I want to teach them coding. Okay, so put on your computers, let's download Visual Studio Code. And people are looking at me. And I'm like, okay, what's up? I don't know how to use a computer. And that was what made us think everything through. Sometimes, because we have certain privileges, we do not understand that the reality to access to digital tools actually is part of the problems we face in Ghana in trying to advance. So we realize that even though you are in Accra and you're trying to do what you can do with laptops, with computers, there are some people that are actually living in this country that do not even know what it means to hold a mouse. So moving forward from there, we realize that based on statistics, we just have only 26% of women working in the tech workforce. And which is part of the contributing factor to why we don't really advance, because if you want to really advance technology, if you want to advance education as a country, if you want to compete, you need to be able to bridge the digital divide and the gender disparity we have in the continent. So we develop our train girls in technology. But then we also realized, why do we have to wait for them to get to the age of 18 to 35 before we start training them in tech? And so this year, because of our experience in getting a little bit of funding, we thought that it's very important to come up with a project where we call Tech Forward. And that's why I was really glad when Christine was talking about the lack of ICT trainers and teachers who really didn't know much about IT tools. So we realized that we don't need to wait for kids to grow up in school. We have to start now. So we started a project to train teachers with digital skills and knowing IT. So whether you are an ICT teacher or a science teacher or an English teacher, you need to know how to use ChatGPT to help you with some of the resources you can come up with. You need to know how to use DeepSeek. You need to know how to use some of the Microsoft tools. You need to understand what your computer can do for you as an educator, so that when you are educating the kids, it's like they are learning from you. But when the trainer doesn't really know what the trainer is really teaching the kids, then we are producing low quality students, like she mentioned, just about 5.7%. If you go to school for 11 years and the quality of your education is just 5.7, or it's the equivalent of 5.7 years. I mean, it's good, but it just tells us that we need to build quality. And in today's world, digital training is the quality we need, because it gives you the opportunity to level the playing ground between somebody who is learning in Ghana and somebody who is learning in USA. If you have access to the internet, you can still learn from Udemy what an American is going to learn. You can learn cybersecurity online based on the information that an American is going to learn, or somebody in India, or somebody in Europe. But how would you be able to learn that if you don't also have access to these infrastructure and IT tools and you're living in Ghana?
Wow, so, you almost made me sad. Right?
Yeah.
I was listening to your story, and I think some of our leaders who have access, policymakers, investors, development bank partners, need to hear some of these stories, right? Because whilst we're dreaming of the power plants and the factories and the hospitals and big data centers, the fundamentals have to be right? And I think young women should not be left out. think the census was saying for what, 50% are women in Ghana and 50 are men, which is like an equal playing field. So I think this brings us to the discussion. I think we run out of time, but Telecel would join us on stage and give us a wrap up. I think Anita is behind me. Before Anita speaks though, I think it will be fair to just get one sentiment from you all, an advice to the policymakers, the investors, the organizers, and just to share a warning, because my thing is the speed of AI cannot be ignored. My warning that if agentic models can do what an entire company can do, if we don't rush for adoption, a lot of our jobs will be made useless. So that's my warning to the leaders and the policymakers to take this very, very serious. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sam. As you know, representing DS Consortium, one of our focuses is on driving innovation and also the digital literacy. It's very important for us to do that. How do we harmonize the various started digital literacy in all of the various countries onto a regional, probably on a very small level, on a regional level, and then onto a continental level for us to be able to achieve what we need to achieve.
Awesome. Thank you so much. One line.
Yes, thank you very much. Just one line to say the emphasis should be placed on regional collaboration, public-private partnerships, more investment in digital infrastructure, digital literacy, cybersecurity, and of course, encouraging innovation in fintech.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
One sentence, yes, for policymaker, we have with us African Union, IPN, and other institutions. So we have to think big. It's have plans, it's have vision, prepare plans, but also act fast, small, and smart. Thank you.
I'll give you one word: partnership. Right? We know where we are in terms of quality. We know the rich opportunities that are there, but none of this is possible without partnership, and we're in a room full of amazing actors to make those partnerships happen.
Thank you.
I was just about to say that developer will come at your door. Please support us to empower the next generation of girls in tech. Thank you.
To connect Africa, we need to interoperate our payment systems, but also work together to achieve that.
Thank you.
Mine is a very simple call. We've had a lot of talk. It's time to walk the talk. Thank you.
And Sewa.
Thanks. I'd say don't let funding be a barrier. Start small, prove value, iterate, and then scale.
Excellent. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. Anita is going to wrap up for us.
Sorry to step on your toes, my brother. I'm just going to ask your panelists to, with respect, please remain seated while we give this session what I'd like to call a wrap-up. The cherry on top of the cake, the essence of moving dialogue into action in a practical example. Please allow me to bring to the stage the CEO of Telecel Cash, Philip Amwati, who will give us a wrap-up on leveraging digital infrastructure, innovation, and technology to connecting Africa. You may, whichever one. The stage is big enough for us, all of us to share. Please warmly welcome Mr. Amwati.
Your Excellencies, the Chair, guest of honor, my own group chairman, Nicholas Bohr, that is our group chairman. Thank you for coming. CEO, Africa Prosperity Network, my brother Gabi, thank you for the good job done. Distinguished guests, industry leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and warm welcome. I deem it an honor to be speaking at the African Prosperity Dialogue 2025 to wrap up for such a lively discussion around leveraging digital infrastructure, innovation, and technology to connect Africa. This subject is at the core of driving African continental integration and shared prosperity in alignment with African Union's Agenda 2063. African widespread prosperity can only be achieved if we can efficiently and inclusively leverage digital infrastructure, innovation, and technology to connect everyone. Our shared prosperity is bound together by the advancement of innovation, technology, and strong infrastructure. We live in a time where the future of our continent is being shaped not only by the physical roads we build or the energy we generate, but by the invisible network that power our economies, our communities, and our relationships. These are the digital highways of technology, which is now the lifeline of our socio-economic development. As Africa continues its journey towards shared prosperity, one thing is clear. The key to unlocking the continent's vast potential lies in its ability to harness technology, particularly digital infrastructure, and inclusive connectivity. As we come together to the African Prosperity Dialogue under the theme, Delivering Africa's Single Market Through Infrastructure, invest, connect, integrate, we are reminded of the ambitious goal set in the AFTA, that is African Continental Free Trade Area, and then African Union Agenda 2063. AFTA aims to create the largest free trade area in the world, encompassing over 1.3 billion people across 54 countries. The goal is clear: to grow the intra-African trade, enhance regional economic integration, and uplift the livelihood of millions. But to achieve this, we must first address the key barriers standing in the way, that is the connectivity. Today, Africa is still one of the least connected continents in the world. Although the digital landscape has improved in recent years, we still have much work to do. According to the International Telecommunication Union, over 300 million people in Africa are still offline. This lack of connectivity is not just a matter of access, it's a matter of opportunity lost. Without reliable, affordable access to digital world, millions of Africans are locked out of global economy. First, we need to invest in expanding digital infrastructure. In recent years, mobile broadband has grown rapidly across the continent, with Africa now being home to about 1 billion mobile subscriptions. Yet we still have challenges with connectivity in rural and remote areas. By prioritizing investment and collaboration in broadband networks, fiber optic cables, 5G infrastructure, we can ensure that every African has access to the opportunity that the digital economy provides. Let's come home. At Telecel, we are committed to playing our part in this transformation. We are not just about providing telecommunication service, we are about enabling the African dream. From mobile financial service that empower farmers in the rural Ghana to e-learning platforms that offer children access to quality education, regardless of where they live, we are seeing the power of digital connectivity unfold in real time. But we must know that work doesn't stop in providing infrastructure. We must integrate digital service across industries, agriculture, healthcare, education, trade, and finance. The growth of the mobile money in Africa is a prime example of how technology can leapfrog traditional barriers. Today, mobile money services have helped millions of Africans access financial services in the real time, creating an ecosystem of growth that reaches from beyond the cities and into the hearts of the rural communities. Recent studies by GSMA have shown that sub-Saharan Africa has more than half of the world's mobile money accounts, with daily transactions amounting more than $3 billion in 2023. We need to increase this momentum to expand the financial inclusion to benefit every African. Telecel is committed to collaboration to fully realize mobile money interoperability across Africa, with ongoing discussion with regional partners and participation in industry-wide initiatives focused on cross-border payments. There is a critical piece of the puzzle that I must mention today, that is innovation. Digital infrastructure alone is not enough. Africa is the youngest continent in the world, with more than 65% of the population under the age of 25. This is an opportunity to create an enabling environment when young people can solve real problems on the continent using digital tools such as artificial intelligence to address challenges of healthcare, energy, agriculture, and education. African prosperity also hinges on building consistent supply of skilled talent to propel the integration of the technology in the future. That is by digital literacy, the fundamental in our education curriculum, and run through all the ranks from basic schools to the universities. Terrestrial Truth, its foundation, has what we call Connected Learning Program. Over 20,000 children have so far benefited from this program. And it is in line with our commitment to train more than 10,000 children every year up to 2030 to grow the digital skills in Ghana. As we move forward, I must also embrace the integration across border, across sectors, and across industries. The digital economy cannot thrive in isolation. We need harmonized policies, regulations, and standards to ensure that the digital marketplace is as integrated as the physical marketplace we have today. The African Union Agenda 2063 lays out a bold vision of prosperous, integrated, and peaceful Africa, the one that is governed by the power of innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. As we achieve this vision, we must move from ambition to action. The upcoming the panel has done a very good job, and I appreciate what one of our ladies spoke about, the fact that our education level is low. Out of 11 years of education, is equivalent 5.7. That is not good enough. We need to work together to improve this. I believe we can collaborate, work together in concerted efforts, and can deliver African market, single market, and engineer more prosperous, inclusive, and connected Africa. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Let's celebrate the speaker and the panel. Shall we take a photo? May we have all the speakers lined up so we can have one quick photo. We can move on to the next session. Please, let's celebrate them one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, as we move forward with the photos, let's ask ourselves one question. Where are we now? Right now, we've succeeded in answering the question of how do we leverage digital infrastructure, innovation, and technology to connect Africa. Well, we've got to move forward. Yesterday, if I picked nothing at all, it was clear that within the 1.4 billion African potential is a clearly defined middle class of 400 million Africans. The conversation of African investment can be powered indeed by the middle class. Little Bird whispered to us yesterday, what if the middle class contributed $1 each? We're talking north of $4.8 billion each year. The investment that we need to power Africa is right here. And as we continue the conversations, we would be able to explore it. To the first panel, may I humbly request that we take our seats so we can move on to the next panel. Thank you very much, Mr. Mwate, the rest of the team. May I humbly request that we take our seats so we can move forward. Thank you. Let's celebrate them one more time. There's a story that I chanced on The Guardian. And the story indicates the following. The United Arab Emirates has become the largest backer of new business projects in Africa. This was 2024 story. Between 2019 and 2023, there are indications that the Emirati companies announced $110 billion of projects, 72 billion of them being in renewable energy. Our next panel would focus on a discussion of how we can deliver affordable, accessible, and sustainable energy. But we start off with a case study. The case study simply says, how do we power Africa with one of the biggest potentials we have today, the Inga Dam. And to set the tone, may I invite on stage Christian Kalonji, Technical Director of the Grand Inga Project. Please, let's put our hands together and welcome him on stage. You can use the mic. My presentation, please. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to take you through the Grand Inga project and the opportunities for the African continent. What is the Grand Inga and where it is located? So it is located in the DRC with a total potential of hydro electricity of 100,000 megawatts, of which 44 plus 1,000 megawatts are located at the Inga site. And the DRC is known for abundant mineral resources, and it has a population of above 100 million people. And the vast majority are youth. The Inga site is on the Congo River, which boasts an average flow of 40,000 cubic meters per second, and it covers the entire Congo from south to the west with a length of 4,700 kilometers. And it covers a region as large as 3.7 million square kilometers. And the site itself has the shape of a woman carrying a baby. It has an elbow where the river forms the rapids that we call the Inga. So it is the capacity of the site is estimated at 44,000 megawatts, out of which today we only operate 1,700 megawatts. And we are now embarking on a journey to develop the rest of the 42,000 megawatts remaining. Next. The 42,000 megawatts has the potential of powering vast region of Africa, and the distances are not so large, and it is within our reach to realize this potential. So we can power with Inga, we can power Southern Africa, we can power North Africa, and we can connect through Nigeria to West Africa. Next. Unlike other massive projects, unlike other hydroelectric projects, the risks to the environment for Inga are very limited. There are no heritage or protected sites on or near the site. We don't have protected spaces in that region, and it is vastly a remote area with little population. And we expect Grand Inga to improve the quality and the nature of the energy used. And the potential to pollute by Inga is far less than other infrastructures of the same size. And we expect as benefits that Grand Inga improves the livelihood of many Africans at large whose main energy source today is biomass. To this regard, we don't consider Inga only as an hydroelectric project. Grand Inga is part of what we call a program Inga, which lies on 5 pillars. The first pillar being energy access and protection of the environment. The second pillar relies on local development, addressing community needs and things like that. Congo being a mineral-rich country, another pillar deals with mineral resources and their production. So we want to bring our mineral processing plant. And the next pillar is infrastructures. Today, none of our roads or none of our bridges or ports can sustain the kind of load that we put on the roads or on the bridges when the project starts. So we need to revamp them and we need to build new ones. And the last pillar deals with regional energy trade, the energy that we think we can share with our African brothers. It's also global. And it also addresses the need for capacity building for the people, and it's also a call for improving our internal governance and economic management systems to cater for the needs of all the changes that will be required for the system. So it's a very, very ambitious program that, as you see, will call for our contributions as both as individuals or as organizations. So we call for our brothers Africans to take part of this journey and accompany the DRC in this endeavor. We are very open for all investors and all contributions to the project. Next. So like I said, we have four layers of activities that we undertake on the hydroelectric project itself. The first one being the preliminary works, all the roads, all the community activities, all the ports and all the infrastructure that we need to build, all the special economic zones that we need to set up to welcome the energy-intensive industries that shall accompany the project to justify its necessity. To start with, the second layer is the energy generation itself. Out of 42,000 megawatts, the first phase of the project will be Inga 3 of 11,000 megawatts. And followed by 5 phases to cater for the remaining 31,000 megawatts. We will need to build, as I showed you, layers of transmission lines across Africa, from West Africa to Congo, from Congo to South Africa, and to North Africa. To date, the conversation is going well with the Southern Africa region. Other regions are yet to come on board to discuss with us their needs and their interest into the project. We are very much advanced with the South Africa Power Pool, and very soon, I think next month, we are going to sign the intergovernmental memorandum of understanding between Congo and the Southern Africa region countries to frame up how the transaction will work to build this much needed transmission infrastructure. So we will need support from both the national government, from the sub-regional and from the continental government, and also from actors in those areas to offtake the energy that we needed. We are at advanced stages with some players, but we are still open because as I said, we have 42,000 megawatts of electricity to produce. Though we are discussing 11,000 currently, we can still consider other additional requests for offtake, so that the next phase can also be triggered immediately. The structuring model encompasses various options. I will not take much of your time. I will just summarize that we are willing public and private partnership, whereby we want both the public and the private partners to come on board to help us develop this elephant. So the first option is a publicly funded project on the first two layers, and the private coming only on the power generation. The transmission will be on a public-private partnership. And here is some thoughts on how we think we can structure this, and how we can help with the discussions. The next one as well is similar to the first, except that except that it caters for the next 5 phases, whereby we can also do the same thing. We have received as well on the INGA4 very, very encouraging signals from a partner from Nigeria with whom we are currently working to trigger the next INGA4 project. So it is really quickly going. So we are only left with 4 out of 6 possible entities that we need to develop. Next, please. So it's the same. So we need to talk to various actors to get this together. Next. So this is how we think we can capture the various companies that will come on board on the project. Both publicly led and privately led. So next, I think that's next. So next again. So this is the transmission. Sorry, so on the transmission side as well, we can consider as well a mix of both public and private participation to develop the project together. So as I said, the work is going very well, and we are here to hear from various actors. We are open to consider both your participation. All the bids and the tenders will be public and international. So please, we need the participation of Africa, as we want INGA to be an African project by Africans. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for him again. Thank you so much. Thank you. You may please be seated. Yes, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Grand INGA project, we head straight to Ghana. A bit of the presentation today was on public-private partnership. And I'm excited, delighted that we've been joined by the Honorable John Abdullah Chinapop, who is the Minister for Energy and Green Transition in Ghana. Please, let's put our hands together as he joins us next for his keynote address.
Thank you very much. I recall that the last time I stood here was about 9 years ago, when I was then Deputy Minister. And since then, I've been in the wilderness of opposition for 8 years. And so, that attests to the beauty of Ghana's democracy. Honorable guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. This probably will be my first official engagement outside of the office. It is a great honor and privilege that I address you at this African Prosperity Dialogue 2025, a forum that has brought together leaders and experts dedicated to shaping the future of our great continent. And so let me commend the organizers and all those who put this great program together, because as I've been well informed, this event seeks to bring together different shades of opinion to discuss and chart a pathway towards lifting Africa out of poverty. Today, my duty is to explore the energy sector, particularly in Africa, by touching on the aspect of ensuring that we have reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy for economic growth, not just in Ghana, but in Africa. Energy consumption, as you may be aware, is generally giving a significant contribution to societal development and living conditions. Notwithstanding this reality, however, the energy supply needs of Africa continues to pose a major challenge, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. Indeed, energy supply in sub-Saharan Africa has remained insufficient, posing a great challenge towards the subcontinent's quest to achieve accelerated economic growth. Available data so far shows that about 600 million people in Africa do not have access to electricity, with another 900 million lacking access to clean cooking. The situation is even more disturbing for sub-Saharan Africa, where just about 48% of the population have access to electricity, compared to 99% in Asia and 100% in North Africa. Have just about 11% of their population having access to electricity. This creates a significant challenge and an imbalance. When you look at electricity consumption per kilowatt hour of what United States consume, and about 3% of what Europe consumes. And when you take South Africa out, the data is even more frightening. Despite the continent's abundant renewable energy resources, Sub-Saharan Africa continues to struggle with renewable energy consumption, with approximately 80% of our energy sources emanating from non-renewable or fossil-based fuel, as compared to the global average of 60%. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an undeniable fact that the African continent cannot be left behind in the quest to secure the provision of reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy sources. This is the only surest way that the continent can lift itself out of poverty, achieve accelerated economic growth, and more importantly, achieve inclusive economic growth. Faced with these challenges, the United Nations has incorporated the attainment of adequate, reliable, and sustainable energy sources in its SDGs. Specifically, Sustainable Development Goal 7 aims at ensuring that the world achieves access to clean and affordable energy. In addition to that, the African Union has positioned energy development and its consumption at the core of its development agenda, aiming to ensure that the continent achieves access to reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy by 2063. The energy deficit of Sub-Saharan Africa can partly be attributed to the relatively high cost of energy-related investments, which poses as one of the biggest challenges towards the continent achieving its energy needs. For instance, it is estimated that the continent will require between 43 to 55 billion United States dollars in energy-related investments annually until 2040. However, the stark reality is that the continent is able to mobilize just about 9 billion, leaving a huge deficit in terms of the funding gap required to attain universal access to electricity and sustainable energy sources. This therefore underscores the fact that the public sector or government alone cannot achieve this objective. It is therefore imperative that African heads of states adopt a paradigm shift and partner with the private sector, NGOs, development organizations to ensure that we take full advantage of the continent's rich energy resources to achieve affordable and sustainable energy, even as we go through the energy transition. It also calls for proper and timely planning to support decision making, which is key at meeting the objectives in terms of energy sourcing, distribution, storage, and consumption. I am confident that this forum will serve as a platform for collaborative work for us to identify innovative and pragmatic ways towards achieving these objectives and targets. For us in Ghana, the strategic use of energy to power industrialization is fully aligned with the objectives of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. By doing so, Ghana positions itself as a leading hub for value addition and intra-continental trade within the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, as you may be aware, Ghana is committed to leading Africa's energy transition whilst advancing sustainable development. Under the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, we are committed to embarking on a progressive path towards ensuring that we achieve renewable and sustainable energy, not just for Ghana, but for Ghana to serve as a reliable hub for the entire West African sub-region. We are also committed to invest in energy to make the light stay on as the foundation pillar to power our policy of a 24-hour economy, which we are committed at achieving. Ghana stands tall when it comes to electricity access in sub-Saharan Africa. Ghana's access rate stands at about 90%. And if you take sub-Saharan African countries, we are either second or third when it comes to electricity access. We are going to prioritize renewable energy as part of our energy transition by focusing on solar, wind, mini hydro, waste to energy, and other renewable sources in order for the continent, and Ghana in particular, to meet its energy needs and requirements. In Ghana, our policy seeks to achieve an optimal energy mix that addresses both immediate and future needs. To achieve this, we intend to deepen and ensure that we achieve total gas to power era. Already, about 80% of our thermal fuel needs is achieved with natural gas. And with what we are pursuing, we are confident that we shall achieve 100% gas to power when it comes to energy consumption. We also want to accelerate renewable energy consumption, both on and off grid, as well as promoting energy efficiency to reduce wastage and ensure that we achieve overall benefits from the energy that we produce and consume. A successful energy transition hinges on the availability of skilled labor and expertise. And for this reason, Ghana is prioritizing the development of its human resources through targeted training and providing the needed education so we can withstand the headwinds and go through the energy transition without serious challenges. State that while these strides are commendable, they underscore a larger truth. Africa's energy future cannot be shaped by individual countries alone and by working in isolation. Energy is the lifeblood of Africa's single market, and we need to collaborate and work together. The first presentation showed clearly that if Africa were to collaborate and develop the Inga Dam, it could potentially provide the cheapest source of power which is needed for industrialization. And 100 megawatts of energy is quite huge when it comes to Africa. Our dialogues here must focus on actionable solutions rather than the traditionally well-documented approach of talking about the already known challenges. Ghana believes in leveraging regional partnerships to tackle Africa's fragmented energy landscape. Through the West African Power Pool, we are determined to strengthen cross-border energy trade and infrastructure. And for those of you who are not in West Africa, we have what we call the West African Power Pool, where all our grids are interconnected and upgraded to the 330 kVA line and the 270 kVA line to ensure that we trade energy amongst ourselves. And so far, Ghana supplies energy to Benin, to Burkina, to Cote d'Ivoire, to Cote d'Ivoire. And so that underscores the rationale behind what we call the West African Power Pool, which will provide us with the avenue and a common platform to exchange and sell electricity and power amongst ourselves. Like I stated earlier, access to capital remains one of the most significant obstacles to energy development across Africa. To address this challenge, Ghana is spearheading efforts to prioritize self-funded private sector involvement and tapping into other green bonds and regional trade initiatives in order to address this challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to inform you that His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama announced his government's intention to establish a renewable energy investment and green transition fund at the just ended Africa Energy Summit in Tanzania, to be specific, Dar es Salaam. This fund seeks to mobilize domestic resources as well as international resources to pursue an aggressive agenda towards investment in renewable energies, particularly off-grid renewable energies. So we seek to aggressively invest in home solar systems, wind, renewable street lights, solar lamps, and clean cooking technologies in order to attain our vision towards ensuring that we promote renewable energy consumption in Ghana. These approaches not only address the immediate financing needs, but will also ensure that we build investor confidence, laying the foundation for a vibrant and self-reliant energy ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, achieving reliable and affordable energy as well as sustainable energy in Africa demands unity, innovation, and unwavering commitment. By responsibly leveraging our natural resources, prioritizing renewable energy, and investing in our people, we can forge a prosperous, inclusive, and sustainable energy future. This in turn will ultimately drive industrialization, support and anchor the objectives of AFTA, and significantly enhance the quality of life for the millions of Africans. Ghana stands ready to lead this charge, working in collaboration with partners across the continent and beyond to unlock the full potential of Africa's energy sector. Together, we can power Africa's progress and secure a brighter, more sustainable future for generations to come. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time. If I pick nothing at all, there are two things that excite me the most about this presentation. The first is Ghana's commitment to leading Africa's energy transition, the green energy transition. Energy Fund is very crucial for our investment attraction so far as Africa is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to move on to the next session. We are some few minutes behind, so once the panel comes through, we need to move as quickly as possible. May I invite on stage Samuel Dubik Mahama, former Managing Director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, who would moderate the next session focused on answering one clear question. How do we deliver affordable, accessible, and sustainable energy? That's what I'm asking. He'll be joined on stage shortly by the following individuals. Olakunle Williams, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Tetraco Energy. Let's put our hands together as he joins the stage. Fanis Nyabate, who's the founder, Eye of Africa, Kenya. James Nyabu, Presidential Economic Advisor on Green Hydrogen Commissioner, Namibia. Reverend Ekwia Ofori Boateng, former GM, Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company Limited. Please, let's put our hands together as they join us on stage. Ibrahim Masada, Chairman, Algest Investment Bank, and Dr. Engineer Gloria Magumba, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Energy, Zimbabwe. Please, let's celebrate it one more time. Mr. Moderator, the very best.
Good afternoon to you all. I'd like to say good afternoon to all invited guests. All protocols observed. As he said, we are slightly behind time, so we need to quicken things a bit. What we are here to deliberate on is the biggest question that has been posed to us is delivering affordable, accessible, and sustainable energy in Africa. We had a great presentation. And we really appreciate that presentation. My name is Samuel.
Clean energy, to really onshore new industries that are looking for that clean energy, so that they can access new markets, which essentially will discriminate on goods based on their carbon content. Very excited to share more.
I'm Reverend Ikua for practice, and I'm an Anglican priest by occupation. And what the church does is implement social impact projects. And delivering affordable energy to all people is a social impact project. When the world needed education delivered, it was the church that took that first step. So many of us talk about having gone to Adisado, the Ghanaians, of course, Wesley Girls and so where we want to deliver to people who we can't reach. The advantage that we bring is that we are already there. We are already with the people who need the affordable energy, who need the education, who need the renewable energy, we are available to the people who need the advocacy done for them. So I'm very excited to be here to talk about the type of unity that the Honourable Minister spoke about and the role that we can play.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I would like to observe all protocol. My name is Gloria Magombo. I'm the Secretary for Energy and Power Development in the Republic of Zimbabwe. I'm very happy to be here to share our experiences as a country in terms of how we intend to deliver the much so needed energy for economic development and prosperity. Whilst looking at our African continent, we still lag behind. I'm a former regulator and utility person, so I believe that the solutions are with us, and we are the people who will make it possible for the continent to meet its SDG goals and also the African vision. And thank you for being part of this panel.
Thank you. I'll just ask for you to introduce yourself.
Thank you again. Good morning again. I am happy to be here this morning to discuss about the solutions to and affordable energy to Africans in the context of
that could change the face of Africa. The biggest thing one would ask would be, why has it taken so long, or why haven't we actually collectively research work done? The project hasn't taken off.
Okay, multiple reasons. The most, I would say, the most prevalent one would be the size. A massive project. There are not so many projects at 1,000 megawatts in the world, but we are talking about developing 42,000 megawatt projects, and there are not so many experts and people who can take this load worldwide. The second reason would be the fact that usually people will consider the first two phases of INGA 1 and INGA 2 that DRC had developed so far had got very bad coverage in the media. They were considering during the 70s and 80s when we did it that there were white elephants. They were not required. Yet it turns out that without these key facilities, the economy of DR Congo could have been in chaos. We do believe that despite all the hurdles, the time is right that we proceed to the next phase of development of the INGA. Because being now a nation of 1 million plus people, we cannot continue relying on fuel to power our economy. And we think that we cannot be sitting on such potential when it is possible to do all the things required to bring it alive and respecting the environment. So this is the journey we are embarking on, and we think that we can do it, and it is possible.
Yeah. Okay. My next question would be, upon deliberating about this, from where you sit as an advisor in such transactions or such advisory role or policy to government, what would you think is disturbing when such a project comes up and let's say the policy implementers have to think through it to see why we shouldn't do this or when we should do this, or in terms of trying to prioritize something like this? Because as you said, this is green energy. This is an inductive power. With dams, you can say it's also renewable. But this kind of energy is the kind of energy that powers industry. Some people talk about solar all the time. But one thing we need to know about solar is that solar is not an inductive power. But this is inductive. This can boost industrialization. So why do you think in a policy room it will not be considered as a main project or something that needs to be looked at and driven?
No, fantastic. Thank you so much for the floor, and again, thank you for the organizers for actually getting me here. It's first time to be here, but it's amazing to have this dialogue really across fellow African countries. So I tried to use some visual aids, I think, for my discussion today. So if my producers at the back there can get us up slide 19, I'll try and talk a little bit about what it is that we're trying to do in Namibia with our own little mini INGA. But essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to utilize the strengths that we have. So Congo has the big sort of river, but in Namibia we have world-class solar and wind energy co-located, and importantly it's negatively correlated. So the wind typically blows quite nicely in the evening. Of course, the sun shines during the day. Namibia, unlike Congo is 100 million people, we're just 3 million people. So we couldn't possibly consume all the energy ourselves. You can see Congo is also trying to evacuate some of that energy to its African neighbors. And so what we've tried to do is to say, well, who could consume all of this clean energy? Either our neighbors, but also our international neighbors. And so what we did is we realized that the world at the moment has quite an ambition to decarbonize hard-to-abate sectors. And to do that, they will need some clean molecules. So whether that's hydrogen, methanol, ammonia, or others. And at the core of all of those different solutions was the hydrogen molecule, which of course you could make with renewable energy and electrolyzers. So we then embarked on a 3-year journey with our late president to put together essentially a transactional map similar to what you saw in Congo, and this is what I wanted our guys to put up on screen if they could. On page 19, you would see that we're looking to now tap into there's a hydroelectricity project that we're trying to build with Angola called Veins. And then within our country, we have these 3 valleys that have actually our wind energy and our solar energy. So if you look at this particular map, when I was invited to try and come speak, while of course this was a Namibian project, you can see that the president's vision from day one was always how do we connect Namibia with Angola, with Botswana, and of course with our neighbors from South Africa. The key with the transaction at Inga, or even our own Inga in Namibia, we're trying to build a Hyphen project that's about 8 billion euros to construct, is always the offtake. Who will buy your product? And are they willing to sign an offtake guarantee? Once you do that, typically the funders come. Now this project that I've put on here, if he goes to the next slide, which is page 20, and I'll be quick about this. Slide 20 then says, to get that integrated project going, you really needed two things. You needed significant investment in infrastructure, and then you needed to attract new industries that would come to Namibia that never existed before. And I think there on the left-hand side, you can see when we mentioned new industries, we were not just talking about industries that would consume the energy to make the products, but we were talking about new industries, for example, like wind turbine assembly. That's a whole new industry that would come to Namibia because the Hyphen project, for example, would need 600 wind turbines. And I'll take it sort of one step further. If our colleague goes to page 24, what we then did is we put together a national portfolio of strategic and complementary projects, and we depicted them on slide 24 when he goes there. And on the back of illustrating to funders a complementary and integrated investment plan, it was easier to begin to mobilize some capital. So to date, we've mobilized already about 100 million euros, in fact 123 million euros in grant funding to start building some of this infrastructure. And as you can see on the map, it's mixed. It has rail, port, renewable energy, and then some of the new industries that we were talking about. Now, the next page, which is page 25, shows you the socioeconomic benefits of taking such an approach to mobilizing renewable energy, not just for access to consume at home, but actually for access to start making products that you can trade with the world, with your fellow neighbors, and most importantly, of course, by doing that, when you create these new industries, you create jobs. I'll just give one small example. I do, of course, have our advisory board member, Ms. Lamini Zuma here from South Africa. One of the things we're doing is we're trying to move iron ore from the Northern Cape into Walvis Bay, where we have now built the first direct reduced iron furnace of its kind in the world. Essentially, this particular kiln takes iron ore, reduces it with hydrogen, and then makes a new product called direct reduced iron that can then be used to make green steel. So what you can see there is we're not just using the energy for our own consumption, we're facilitating inter-regional trade, strengthening the railway connections between us and our neighbors. We're using the renewable energy at home to make a whole new product that never existed, and then we're trading that with either Germany, who's the off-taker, or indeed Japan. Toyota, for example, wants to buy this particular component. And the one last thing I'd love to say is, I really love the signal that Ghana sent by appointing a Minister of Energy and adding green transition to the title. I think it is so fundamental and revolutionary that our countries are now saying green transitions are an important part of our economic strategy, and I would love to spend some more time with Minister John G. before to talk about that. And of course, we would love to come and share with Ghana all of the lessons that we have learned in Namibia. Thank you.
I'll definitely come back to you. Reverend Okia, looking at what he has just pointed out and he has shared with us, it's clear that in taking these approaches, it's going to be accessible, it's going to be renewable, it's going to give our environment, our society, it's going to give us that level of comfort. But what then happens to those who say we should be thinking about energy security now than be thinking about all of these fancy energy transition and going solar? Or what would be your take on that?
Energy security is tied to the energy transition. Because if we look at what is happening with the existing energy that we have, a lot of the challenges that we are seeing within our societies come from some of the things that we didn't regulate and some of the byproducts of having using the type of fossil fuels and the types of energy that we use right now. So in order to move things forward and to have truly sustainable energy, it is important that we're going to these new energy transitions. And in doing so, it is also important that people who are going to use this energy understand what type of energy it is and understand the utilization of it. And so the education is important, the training is important, and making sure that they understand what is being done.
In just saying understanding what is being done, yes, they may understand. But the other option of it is that, or the other side that needs to be looked at is that we're also trying to make it accessible. And trying to make it accessible, there are also those who would say there are people that have invested, like especially, let's take for example the mini grids that would take people off the main grid. That's going to be a loss to, let's say, the utility. So in looking at that, won't you say it would be about time for, let's say, most African communities to look at it in context of, let's say, giving back to the grid their excesses that they produce on their mini grids?
In order for that to happen, there must be commitment on the part of the government. And that commitment also involves the advancement of the grid to a point where, one, it can handle the capacity, and two, it can receive. But it starts with the policymakers. I'm very happy to see the Minister of Energy here, because it's important that the policymakers accept that this is the way we need to move forward. So we can't say that, oh, let's create as much energy as possible, but there's no investment being made to increase the grid. It's like building a pipe where you have the ocean on one side and you have a 2-inch pipe, and then you don't understand why is the water not moving from the ocean across to the people on this side. It takes commitment, and so the government needs to take a position that says, this is something we're going to be intentional about. We are going to expand the grid. We are going to make it beneficial for people to come off grid and plug the excesses back into the grid, so that we ultimately take the burden off the government and start to shift it more towards the private sector and also to the communities.
Thank you. Engineer Gloria, you have a regulatory background. So, for example, as we are looking at this Great Inga Dam project, what are the problems you envisage regulatory-wise in trying to probably set a tariff that's going to cut across the whole of Africa? Or should we look at it in terms of how everybody invests in that particular project?
Thank you so much. I think I've been in the sector for years, and I saw the Grand Inga coming up to now, and I think the question on the tariffs is one of the critical reasons why it took a long time for us to have that project coming off the ground, because as per the presentation which has been done by the Namibian colleague, is that when you look at project development, your off-taker credibility is the first issue which you have to look at. And when we talk about off-taker credibility, we are looking at their ability to pay and procure the product, in this case electricity. So the issue of, as regulators in the region, one of the decisions which was taken as far back as the late 2000s at a regional level was to say all utilities should increase their tariffs to a cost-reflective level. And not just being cost-reflective, but being able to pay for the products which they are able to import. I'm from Zimbabwe. We are a country which has serious energy security issues. And this past year was one of the worst, because we witnessed one of the worst droughts ever. And part of our power comes from a hydroelectric power station. And one of the issues which we looked at is climate change. To say we are seeing more droughts, and Inga is a very critical project for the region, because within their own, the Inga region is one of those regions which is expected to actually increase in terms of water production in that the rainfall in that area, which means there will be more energy security related to hydropower. So as a regulator, one of the critical issues for project feasibility is that there should be ability for the project to sell to credible off-takers. The second one is that there should be the infrastructure in terms of transmission and distribution networks to transmit that power from the north, in this case where I sit in Zimbabwe, would be to the south and also to the north. And the regional integration is key to that happening. And I was listening to the minister earlier on when he was talking about the West African Power Pool. The Southern African Power Pool is one of the oldest pools. And if I remember during my time at the utility, we are actually importing power from DRC before you went into a deficit. What has been the biggest challenge in our region is the lack of development of new infrastructure from both the public and the private sector. And as a country, we have changed our legal and regulatory framework to come up with policies which will allow for private sector to come into the sector, develop projects, and be able to sell both to the utility but also the private sector. The market structure in the Southern African region, where we were having a single buyer model, was one of the challenges where if the buyer is not credible, then you cannot take the project off the ground. So the issue of deregulation and bringing in more private sector into the sector and also changing the market structure to ensure that we are not just selling to the utilities but also to a regional market, which then can anchor and assure some projects like the INGA, is what is critical. And I would like to also add to the fact that from a Zimbabwean point of view, we moved away from the single buyer model to allow for intensive energy users to be players in the market. We have seen our intensive energy users registered to be participants within the Southern African Power Pool, which means they can buy and sell their power from the pool directly and guarantee projects like INGA. We will be also signatory to the INGA MOU and the intergovernmental MOU, because we are both a transit corridor but a potential off-taker. So we believe that for projects to remain viable, the market structure should be such that it helps to de-risk the projects. And as a government, we have realized that projects require off-takers who are able to pay. But if they feel the off-taker is not able to pay, they want guarantees from governments. And guarantees for some of our governments which are heavily indebted are a challenge. So whilst we are restructuring our debt as a country, we've also opened up the market to allow for the private sector to come in and sell to other private sector participants. And maybe last but not least, which is really not related to your question, is that the DRC Congo, Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, we are very big on mining and mining critical green energy minerals. One of the key issues which has been missing is the full value addition of these minerals, so that we create the capacity to be able to fund the projects. If we create more value within our own countries, we will then be able to have the capacity to fund projects like the Grand INGA at a regional level. So we are advocating. I was one of the panelists on the critical energy minerals for the Secretary General for the United Nations. We are saying as Africans and at this dialogue that we need to go beyond being extractive and selling our minerals, because the same renewable energies we are talking about, they need cobalt, they need lithium for storage, they need copper, they need nickel, and those are our key elements which we have been given by God, and they are key to unlock value from Africa. If we can get partners who don't extract raw minerals but add value to our own country, so that we remain in maintain that value and build the capacity to fund our projects. I believe that that's the only way we can be able to fund the projects. We have the different development banks, the African Development Bank, the African Bank, but the level of investments which are required need more than that. We need our own capacity internally to develop these projects. And there are so many other examples I'll give in terms of what else we need to do to be able to develop our own projects.
Well, thank you, Madam. You said something in terms of the tariffs being cost reflective. With all of these developments, all of these investments, they are all going to be in one currency, that we are USD. If you're going to implement a cost reflective tariff on the average person, that means that what the electricity is going to be a little bit expensive. I don't know about Zimbabwe, and I'm not going to speculate, but here in Ghana, you realize that the forex rate keeps changing. What in a regulatory framework would be the better way to get everybody to be leveled on a certain playing field so that the cost reflectiveness doesn't look like being insensitive towards the customer that you actually want to help? Because, for example, there are certain African countries, when you're going to pay your electricity bill, you see the forex rate on the bill, just so that it can be cost reflective. But that means that on a regular basis or the weekly basis or bi-weekly or monthly, the tariff keeps going up. And that also affects the low-income households. So in looking at such an investment, where the whole dialogue we are having here has to do with delivering a single market and how we can invest and connecting amongst each other, how do we look at the tariff setting guidelines so that if we should probably even relate it to Ghana, where we decided to do something for our oil industry with stopping the oil trade with gold. And from what you're saying about, let's say in the case of DRC, where there are lots and lots of minerals that should we be looking at it as to make sure that the whole project becomes cost reflective, or the tariffs become cost reflective and the whole project is backed properly? How should we look at structuring this in a regulatory framework?
Thank you for that question. But one thing I've learned from being a former regulator to a policymaker is that affordability is relative. The cost of not supplying someone with energy tends to be much more expensive, especially
the cost of sold energy.
Yes. So you find that at times we talk about protection of consumers by reducing the tariff to a level where the utilities are able to supply them as a way of actually cushioning them. But the reverse is true. What is important is that the people have access. Because with access, and if you link access to productive use, for us in Zimbabwe, when we are looking at projects, whether it's a mini grid, a grid extension or densification, each project targeting a village targets some productive use of that electricity to allow and create ability to consume and make the energy affordable. Because if you're just using it for lighting, it might not be affordable. But if you are using it for productive use, you are empowered to then use it. And as you grow your productivity, you then can consume more. So that's one issue. The second issue is there is always those of our societies who will need protection. So you find that within the tariff design, we always bring in an element of some cross-subsidy. So in Zimbabwe, as an example, we've adopted a stepped tariff which allows us for the first 50 kilowatts hours, which is a bit subsidized. But as you start consuming more, you then pay towards the cost. And if you consume above a certain threshold, you then pay actually more to then cross-subsidize those who are not well able to consume. So the cross-subsidy or a direct subsidy to our less able society people is very important. And in that design, these safety nets in the tariff designs are always critical. But we have learned that if you empower those people, they can actually consume more and you'll be able to do that. The second issue is that of energy efficiency. If you are cross-subsidizing, ensure that that level is properly kitted in terms of their consumption and the gadgets which they use, the lighting which they use, so that their consumption is at a bare minimum, considering the fact that it's being cross-subsidized but it's also being used efficiently. The other issue and way of designing the tariff is such that you don't want to design a project like the Grand Inga on a tariff which is not sustainable. Because if you want to bring this up the private sector, you will not get that private sector. And we know most of our governments at the moment don't have the capacity to. That's why we have almost all the governments, at least in Southern Africa, they've opened up the sector for private sector participation. So we believe that there should not be any subsidies for the productive sector. There should be no subsidies for anyone. This subsidy we advocate for is the one where connection, because it tends to be very expensive, can be subsidized, but consumption should not be subsidized so that it encourages efficient use.
Thank you. That's a good one. Yeah, James. You know, the Inga is not the only one that we are looking at in terms of Africa. There's also this conversation about the Sahara and how the Sahara Desert and the solar panels that are put there could actually power the whole of Africa. My take is this: with projects like these, what are the options of funding that are available to us as Africa? Because clearly, if we all come together, we'll still be in a hole. And I say we'll be in a hole because at the end of the day, the projects are going to be in USD. We all charge our local currencies that are always fluctuating against this foreign currency. So what kind of fundings are available to us, or how do we look at this in terms of the developed world?
I think I'll give you two examples, right? And I think this is where we need to change our mindset with what we should do with these natural resources of ours. The first thing I want to say in support also of what Dr. Magombo has said is, colleagues, the cost of capital makes a big difference, right? So these assets that we were trying to build in Namibia, we were able to mobilize, at least we're in discussions with the European Investment Bank, to get a facility that will give us 500 million euros at a cost of just over 3%. When we borrow ourselves as a nation, our sort of Eurobond 10 years was about 7%. So you can almost half your cost of capital when you're trying to develop renewable energy. And in that already, there is an essence of access, because naturally it means your electricity will be cheaper. This is why when the minister spoke of Ghana launching a renewable energy and green transition fund, it's more fundamental than you think. It's not just about raising money, it's about accessing what we call blended finance. You can get some of this money paired with some grants, concessional loans, and then your traditional capital, and that will lower your weighted average cost of capital, making electricity more affordable. So that's one way. The second thing is, if I look at a project in Morocco, I think we had somebody from Morocco on our stage, there's a project called Xlinks. Xlinks is a massive renewable energy project in Morocco, but it's actually trying to sell the electricity to the UK. Now you might say, but what does that mean for energy access in Morocco or indeed in the Sahel? Affordability and who's going to use your power matters. So the project we're building in Namibia called Hyphen, it's looking to put together 7 gigawatts, but we're not going to use all of that electricity to consume ourselves. We're turning it into molecules and then selling that to various either industries locally or regionally, but also internationally. So what does that mean? I borrowed in dollars and my revenue is in dollars, which gets rid of the capital mismatch. But now your question is, so what does that mean for access for Namibians? So what we did as government is, first things first, we actually negotiated to buy 24% of this project. And we mobilized enough grants from the people that need that project that for now design all the way up until FID, we actually haven't paid a dollar. We mobilized $23 million of grants just to develop the project in our country, number one. Number two, we've spoken to Hive and say, of that 7 gigawatts they will build, a lot of it they will actually curtail. It'll be more energy than they need, given its intermittency. And we've challenged them to capture some of that intermittent energy, shape it with batteries, and then give us dispatchable power at night when most IPPs that are using renewable energy can't play in that role. But given the size of the project and the amount of blended financing we've been able to deploy into the project, the Namibian grid becomes a strategic off-taker of a project of using our renewable energy potential, not just to produce electrons for Namibians, but actually to produce molecules and other products for the regional consumption and international consumption. So I suppose a key thing, if I was to summarize everything I've just said, is innovation matters, right? And you have to consider all of the tools at your disposal. Cost of capital, who are your different customers, and then very, very strategic intervention from a nation that knows what it needs. And importantly, for example, talking to your neighbors. South Africa also has a green hydrogen ecosystem they're building. So at the moment, we've just finished a pre-feasibility study of a hydrogen pipeline that goes from Lüderitz all the way to Bochum to Sasolburg. Why? Because the hydrogen molecules that we'll make in Namibia using this electricity can be used to decarbonize basically the largest single emitter in Africa, which is Sasol. And they use the hydrogen molecules to make very complex products like e-kerosene, waxes, etc. So now we're trading with Africans, but not just in electrons, we're trading in molecules as well. And I think that is another sort of innovative way that you can use your electrons besides just creating access for our own consumers.
Well, Reverend, from what you said right now, my context I'll get from this is, if we are going to trade it, we are in Africa. We are talking about investing, connecting and integrating and providing something that's sustainable. What currency will we be trading?
We keep talking about we're trading in dollars. Okay. And my challenge with that is, it presupposes or it creates the impression that outside of Europe and America, we are incapable of doing anything in-house. It's almost as though we're just waiting for, man literally to drop down to us. But I think that if we look at even the people who are out there working on technology in Europe and America, many of them are Africans. Our challenge is not intellect. Our challenge is a lack of faith in believing that we can bring these things in-house. It's not everything that we have to get from Europe. There's a lot of people who can be trained. Our youth are looking for jobs. We have it in us, So I struggle with working on the premise that practically everything must come from outside. Let's localize as much as we can and change the currency. We are the youngest continent in the world. People need us. Let's be the ones to dictate.
Okay, so based on that, if we go on that by attracting, let's say, our talents that have been harnessed outside and everybody coming back home to help, fine, all well and good. Would we have to now just keep looking in terms of leveraging on each other, cross-border trades, to try and keep the business going? Or we should also have the opportunity to look at it in terms of the developed world too?
I think certainly we can look at the developed world. But I think it's important to recognize that within Africa, we have enough to keep us going. We have enough resources. The West is running off us. It's not the other way around. When you go to Congo, when you come here, all the things that they need to create what they create and sell back to us, it came from here. So certainly nobody's saying let's never do anything with Europe and America or Asia or anybody else. All we are saying is that we have what it takes to get us going and keep us sustained, and then we can export what we don't use to other countries to create further income for us.
That sounds good. Christian, with the setup of the whole conversation over the years about the Enga Dam, how have the locals or how has the DRC positioned itself in terms of its local capacity or
human resource to play a critical role in this development of the dam?
Okay, thank you again for it's one of the a key pillar of the project. So we are developing both professional programs targeting specific people without basic education, so that they are also able to participate into the project. We are setting up programs with universities back home in Togo, whereby we attract young talents to hydroelectricity jobs, so that they are trained and groomed before they finish university, and they come to us. Some of them already working on the project preparation activities that are going on, and we also working on various other activities whereby we strengthen our SMEs and our women, so that they are also empowered to be able to participate to the various activities that the project will require. So it's one of the pillar that sustains all the others of the program, because I say it's not only the hydro dam, but it's a program and that cuts across sectors.
All right, James, with the project back at home that you're very passionate about, I'd like to know how you've leveraged on the African continent in terms of expertise, both locally and within the African sub-region. How has that been?
Absolutely. And I guess one of the things that we have to step back and look at a little bit is we're actually not working on a project. It's actually a whole sector. It's a whole new green industrialization sector we're working on. And today, the pipeline of projects are more than 5. And one of the beautiful things is the institution that actually gave us the capital to put together this whole very new novel idea was actually the African Development Bank. So to Reverend's point, we went and looked internally. And it was through the African Legal Support Facility. But again, they recognized, just like the minister, that we were trying to develop new industries using clean technology. All of that assistance, more than $6 million US, which we used to sort of hire lawyers, technical experts from around the world, but also from Africa. All of that was grants. So that was the first thing that we did in terms of leveraging our own resources to start mobilizing a whole new sector. As I mentioned earlier, while a lot of people were thinking, cool, we'll make these molecules of hydrogen, the ammonia, whatever, and we'll export it, the first place we went to look for minerals to beneficiate, just as Dr. Magombo was saying, it was next door, it's South Africa. South Africa has some of the best not even coal, this was iron ore deposits, and they couldn't get them out through their ports because their ports were a bit congested. So we said, we'll buy your iron ore, but instead of exporting the iron ore, we'll export this new product, and we're in conversations with Gabon and Guinea as well that have amazing iron ore deposits. And then of course, Namibia has iron ore deposits of its own. And then lastly, this one is the one I'm even more excited about. We're talking to a Zimbabwean fertilizer manufacturer called Sable. They've been making fertilizer in Zimbabwe using ammonia since like 1950, right? And they did that with help from Japan. But again, instead of going to Yara in Norway, we went to Zimbabwe and we said, hey, if we give you green ammonia, you don't have to buy gray ammonia from Russia. Could we work together and actually start putting together a Pan-African green fertilizer manufacturer? And those conversations are ongoing right now. The World Food Program and UNIDO have come through with some grants and off-take agreements. And now we're talking to our own government to say, we've got green schemes. If you provide off-take for that manufacturer of this fertilizer, which is essentially going to be a cross-continental collaboration, we can actually raise a capital. So even though these things sound fancy and complex, in Namibia we've now put together 183 scholarships, again mobilizing grant funding, and now you're hearing Namibians talking this vernacular. Molecules such as, again, the hydrogen, this is ammonia sulfate, ammonia being used as shipping fuel, DRI, and all of a sudden it's becoming common space, and it's just for us so gratifying, and it was really a vision that our late president had, who to his last day next week Tuesday is 1 year since he passed. He was a scholar at heart, and he always believed that Africa can innovate and lead the world, and this is roughly what we're trying to do in Namibia. And as the head of the Namibian Green Hydrogen Program, these are the lessons I want to bring to Ghana. I want to take them to Botswana. I want to take them to Kenya, etc., etc.
So, just yesterday I saw a video where the former president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, was addressing a group of people, and he was asking why everybody is sad because the president of the United States, Donald Trump, says he's cutting aid. And his question to them is, he's looking out for his people. So we are at a point where in Africa we also have to be inward looking. So Dr. Gloria, on this backdrop, and from your policy standpoint, would you say it's time for government to stop using the same mantra of I don't have the money, and just stay in the policy corner and allow and make policy to promote private sector participation in all of these things, because most renewable projects are capital intensive, and most of the balance sheets that can draw this kind of capital are the private companies and not the government's balance sheet. So would you say that government should rather concentrate more on making policies and giving incentives to such companies so that they can expand more? Because from what you said earlier, when the companies are given the opportunity to expand, they purchase more energy. So what would be your take on that?
Thank you. Actually, it's a very interesting issue of us, because our president's mantra has been, I'll say it in my language and then translate it. A country is built by its own people. It is very important, because we have realized that if you then depend on others, there are always conditions which come with those, whether it's aid, whether it's grant, it comes with. Then you have to play to the hyper's tune, because it's funding. So we believe that it's important to capacitate and empower our own people to be able to provide the necessary capital. You see that most of the renewable energy projects for Zimbabwe, which started, were funded by local capital. And these were local pension funds, local banks. We started investing in small projects for renewables. And we have now created a critical mass where more people are bringing in more money to do that. But most of it is internal funds, which we are then circulating within the economy and creating a better return on value for our own, instead of getting external funding and then you have to pay back the loans and money goes outside. So it's important to inwardly look. And we have also seen, because of the new ESG requirements, that companies which could afford to do their own projects are now developing those projects. So you've seen the mines, because of some of the new requirements where there will be a tax on carbon in Europe, I think starting from 2026. We have seen our mines developing big solar projects. One of the mines has just finished a 35 megawatt solar project because they want to green their own power, and they've built it themselves with their own retained funds from their own activities within the country. So we are seeing that development coming back to the country. I strongly believe that if you saw what Ethiopians did with the Grand Renaissance project, where they raised money not from just banks and private sector, but also from the people, we can do some green bonds, get people to invest in our own projects and see their value grow as part of capacitating them for the future. I strongly believe that there is a lot of work which us as governments need to do, and we have provided incentives as a country. We are now providing what we call prescribed asset status for those insurance companies and banks which want to fund green projects as a way of incentivizing them to invest into the country and grow value for their investment. So there's a lot of work. But before you go, I want to say something which is quite controversial. As a country which has coal, we believe that we will continue to develop baseload using coal. And we believe there's an opportunity to create carbon dioxide value chains. He spoke about the green ammonia, and we believe that there are some technologies through innovation which can allow us to reduce the impact of these carbon dioxide emitting and greenhouse emitting fuels to actually create other projects, not just by sequestration through putting it underground, but using that carbon dioxide to produce fertilizer. There are already technologies to do that. So we believe that we need to invest more in research and development as African countries, where the minister's presentation, I think he said over 60% of our energy is coming from fossil fuels. We believe with more investments into research and development and innovation, we can stretch that resource to still give us the base load we need. You said it. Obviously, most of the renewables are intermittent, and when it's raining, there's no sun. We need that base load. And then last but not least, we believe that storage as a technology and an innovation is going to actually change the structure of the whole energy sector. And we have seen the new developments in the energy storage battery systems where the concentration of some of the lithium-ion batteries, which can store huge amounts of energy, is becoming smaller, but not just smaller, but also affordable. The cost of renewables is coming lower, but we want it to come lower when we, as Africans, have value added, because that way it gives us the capacity to actually consume the projects, the products, especially the technologies, which we cannot consume at the moment without the value addition. So I'm a strong advocate that no minerals should be exported without proper value addition, not just at first level, but to much, much higher levels. And Africa presents the biggest market. Our lack of access should be our biggest opportunity for us to develop and supply our own African market. Thank you.
Reverend, when the energy minister was speaking, he said that there was a meeting in Tanzania, an AU meeting, and they've signed up to green energy and then also to provide access to everybody, to provide energy access to everybody within the African continent. Would you say that would be an admission that we have not been deliberate about access provision for electricity to all our people within the African continent?
Yes, well, truly we have not. We have not been intentional about it. We've talked about it. We've had multiple dialogues like this, but we haven't put the policies in place. Where there are policies, we haven't made an effort to implement them. And unfortunately, a lot of what we talk about becomes very political. Because, yes, he said it. And it is true and it is a good thing for us to do. But I bet you that 40-something% were thinking, oh, they should wait. When they go out of power, we're going to cancel that thing. But it can't be that. Because renewable energy is good for the nation. So when we make these commitments, they can't be a political promise. They have to be a national promise that we all sign up onto and are right from the grassroots deliberately pursuing. So yes, we've not been, I don't think we've been intentional about it. And if you said we're going to do it, let's do it as a nation and not as a political party.
So before I end this round, there's one thing that I would like to hear from each one of you. What would be the policy directive that would make you see or appreciate that the governments of Africa are being deliberate about the solution of providing sustainable and affordable energy for it to be the backdrop for development for all of us? I'll start with you, Christian.
Okay. I think the most important one will be to facilitate the interconnection of the African networks. Today we operate in isolation, roughly, yet we can leverage on each other's potential to power Africa. Because we lack the basic infrastructure to integrate each other, at times we miss opportunities inside Africa. So it is critical for Africa to build its own infrastructure, whereby Ghana can feed Cote d'Ivoire, and Cote d'Ivoire can feed Nigeria, Congo can feed Botswana, and things like that. So the moment we become more intentional and we build this critical infrastructure, it will trigger a lot of positive outcomes for all of us. It will help fast track some of the projects that we have in pipe and some of the potential that are just sleeping without being tapped into, because we don't have the capabilities to reach out to the real people that can consume that energy. That's my thing.
All right, James, what policy? Get those projects going, and you will make these calculated decisions, and you will end up with stranded assets, or the project will never get built. So, Dr. Magombo stated, R&D first, commercially sustainable models, and the project will start flying off the shelf. Thank you.
For me, I would say we need to have a target. When we say we are transitioning and we're going to renewable energies, what do we want to accomplish in 5 years' time? What's the renewable energy target in 10 years' time? And on the back end, we need to get to. Because in the absence of a target, we are still not being intentional, we're just talking.
All right, thank you. Dr. Gloria.
Thank you. For me, I think what is important is planning. We need a clear vision and plan which says where we want to go, and have critical and deliberate steps to ensure that plan of ensuring, because I believe it's possible, and if we do it. And like there's an African proverb that if you want to move fast, if you want to move fast, you can do it alone and run. But if we want to get far as Africans, we have to embrace this continent, its capabilities. And if you look at the African Union 2063, it's not just looking at interconnectivity, integration, but it's looking at a single market which can come up with a single currency. If the Europeans can do it, we can also do it when they have that EU. And whatever that currency will be, I don't know. But like Mandela said, it always looks impossible until it's done. Thank you.
Thank you. A big round of applause for my panelists. Before we get up and take the pictures, before we leave the stage, clearly from what all the panelists have delivered here, we can see the last 4 policies are something that fit the theme of the show, which is invest, connect, and integrate. Christian here has just spoken to us beautifully about making sure that the interconnectivity of the grid lines are present. Reverend spoke to us about having clear targets and clear goals. Engineer Dr. Gloria just spoke to us about making sure that we plan and plan very well. And to top it all, James said what? We should put research and development at the forefront. If we do not have these things, it will be very, very difficult for us to see the Africa that we want to see in the future. And we are going to continue staying in the way we want to stay. Huge projects like the Inga Dam will still be a project on paper. Huge projects like the solar panels in the Sahara Desert are also going to be projects on paper. There are beautiful and innovative ideas that are coming up, especially in the batteries. There are things that we need to look at to operationalize Africa and make Africa efficient in the energy delivery sector.
Thank you all. My name is Samuel Dubik Mahama, and I was your moderator for this session. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you so much. Please, let's celebrate them. Shall we have a group photograph of the members of this panel? We thank you for the insightful conversation, similar to the views shared by the moderator. As I take the photos, I would indicate what clarity of thought I also have. In listening to them, it's clear in my mind that it's important to get a sense of infrastructure as an enabler. Number two is to ensure that you get clarity of thought on investable industries. Number three is to get a clear sense of the domestic benefits of these decisions. Number four is building local capacity and empowering Africa's investments from within Africa. And number five, which I thought was really insightful, was to ensure that government takes the key step in off-taking some initiatives to ensure that we can support the sectors adequately. Please, let's put our hands together for the panel again. Quickly, our next session would be on the role of Africa's infrastructure development partners in building the single market. But I jump straight to Anita, who's got some few words for us.
Well, you know, Jesse, the reality is we have had our colleagues, our dear delegates, having been seated for quite some time, and actually honored that they still remain seated due to their interest in the conversation.
Indeed.
Now, we're also conscious of how much time we've lost earlier on. So, in a discussion with our executive team, we've decided that we do need to power through lunch, but we're also very conscious of health. Those of you who need to stretch your legs, etc. So, with respect, I mean, coffee is available, etc. We're powering through a crucial conversation because we also do have our speakers who've been seated for quite some time and who got here on time. So, by all means, if during the next 1 hour prior to lunch, you need to grab a coffee and come back, you need to grab your cocoa and come back, please do that. But with due respect, I humbly request that we power through our next session. And of course, our wonderful ushers have water available. Please do stay hydrated as well. So, Jesse, if you don't mind, and if our esteemed guests don't mind, coffee is available, cocoa is available, but we're powering through the next session so that we can make up for time when we get to the lunchtime. May I continue, Jesse?
Indeed.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most important and crucial things that I picked up from the panel that just happened was it is critical for Africa to build its own infrastructure in order for her to elevate herself, feed herself. But it's also critical to value partnerships and relationships. And we know that we see it in the aspirations for Agenda 2063. We also see it in the goals for the sustainable development goals. So our next panel is absolutely crucial, our next session. Before that, we will have a context that will be set by the Ambassador of the People's Republic of China to Ghana, Excellency Tong Defa, and specifically the title is The Role of Africa's Infrastructural Development Partners in Building in Single Market, or Building the Single Market. Before that, ladies and gentlemen, I also want to announce that we do have confirmation that His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, will be joining us tomorrow for the summits of the heads of state. We also do have quite a number of our heads of state already present in country. So yes, as we proceed with our sessions today, as we listen to the various conversations, also bear in mind that tomorrow will be a great day for policy discussions and for endorsements by the various heads of states and by extension the nationals or the countries that have endorsed the Africa Prosperity Dialogues. So we jump into the session, the role of Africa's infrastructural development partners in building the single market. Ladies and gentlemen, with the energy inside of you, please allow me to present Excellency Tong Defa, Ambassador of the People's Republic of China to Ghana for the context setting.
I thought my turn should be next, not the camera. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, today is the third day of Chinese New Year, so I'd like to take this chance to wish everyone here a happy New Year. The year is the year of snake, which I hope the year of the snake can bring you luck, fortune, and prosperity. I would like to thank the host, African Prosperity Network, and African Continental Free Trade Area for hosting this event and for inviting me to join you today. Actually, this is my first time, or the first time for the embassy get involved in this event. I understand the event has been held for a third year, so it's becoming more and more influential. This year, actually, the year of 2025, it's the first year to implement the outcome of 2024 Beijing FOCAC Summit. And also this year is the 12th year anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative presented by Chinese President Xi Jinping. So therefore, I'd like to take this opportunity to share with you China's experience in infrastructure development and prospect of China-Africa infrastructure cooperation. It is an open secret that since China's reforming and opening up in 1978, one of the keys to China's rapid development and great achievement is exactly the infrastructure development. Now China enjoys the world's longest highway and high-speed rail network. 7 of the 10 largest ports worldwide are in China. That's why China has gained a favorable nickname of infrastructure fanatic among Chinese citizens. I think this reflects a deep consensus among Chinese people on how infrastructure can boost development in China. In China, people often say, to get rich, you need to build roads first. It is precisely by building roads into every remote villages to ensure connectivity that we lay a solid foundation for China's historical achievement of eradicating absolute poverty. So this is the valuable experience that we like to share with our African friends. If China, with a population of 1.4 billion people, can achieve modernization, then the global south, especially African countries, can do the same. Now, I can't help remembering when I worked in South Africa 10 years ago. In our mission over there, occasionally the embassy there, we held gathering for our ambassadors across the continent. But due to the lack of direct flights, many ambassadors in other African countries had to transfer from Europe, which was not only tedious and tiring, but also uneconomical and inefficient. After arriving here last August in Ghana, and I'm delighted to find out that there is an African World Airlines, although it's not a big one, that is partly funded by and operated by Chinese Hainan Airlines. It is essentially a local enterprise with only 7 Chinese executives and hired among 400 Ghanaian employees. It seems to me the airline does quite well and expanding regional routes. At present, the development of the African Continental Free Trade Area is in full swing, which is why we need more enterprises like AWA to promote regional connectivity. Ladies and gentlemen, the Belt and Road Initiative is the most vivid practice of China's commitment to building a community with a shared future for mankind. China has been supporting Africa's infrastructure development under the BRI and FOCAC framework, with no political strings attached. BRI focuses on connectivity of policy infrastructure, trade, finance, and people. Until last August, China has signed Belt and Road cooperation documents with 52 African countries and African Union Commission. China helped African countries build and upgrade till now more than 10,000 kilometers of railway, nearly 100,000 kilometers of roads, 1,000 bridges, and 100 ports. With the completion of projects including Mombasa-Nairobi Railway, the Addis Ababa-Djibouti Railway, and Benguela Railway, the transportation efficiency in the continent between the coastal and hinterland areas has been significantly improved. The expansion and renovation project of the Addis Ababa Bole International Airport in Ethiopia will help build the biggest aviation hub in East Africa. Africa is China's second largest overseas infrastructure contracting market. Over the past 10 years, Chinese companies have signed contracting projects with more than $700 billion. A number of landmark projects have been implemented in transportation, energy, electricity, housing, among others. Chinese companies have helped build more than half of Africa's wireless sites and high-speed mobile broadband networks, providing services for more than 900 million African people. China-Ghana cooperation is also witnessing fruitful results. Since I came here last August, we have successfully completed China-aided Jamestown Fishing Port Complex Project, annex building the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Phase 2 expansion project of University of Health and Allied Sciences. The projects under the Sino-Hydro deal are all going steadily. All of these projects certainly help boost local infrastructure and connectivity. Ladies and gentlemen, last year during the FOCAC Summit, President Xi Jinping announced the 6 propositions on modernization and 10 partnership actions that China and Africa will pursue together, which stressed that we should jointly advance modernization that is open and win-win. China is ready to deepen cooperation with Africa in infrastructure, among others, promote exemplary high-quality cooperation projects. Under the Partnership Action of Connectivity, China is prepared to carry out 30 infrastructure connectivity projects in Africa and put in place the China-African network featuring land-sea links and coordinated development. We are ready to assist in the development of AFCFTA for the benefit of trans-regional development in this continent. This year also marks the beginning of the new government in Ghana. Looking ahead, China is ready to work with Ghana to accelerate the implementation of the outcomes of the FOCAC Summit to help develop infrastructure, especially bridging gaps in rural connectivity, digital platforms, and renewable energy, which I happened to join the panel where I heard the Minister of Energy mention about Ghanaians' plan for renewable energy, so as to benefit the local people. Finally, I wish to recall my current or previous visit to Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Mausoleum, where I found President Nkrumah once said, "The independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of African continent." My colleagues even told me that last year in May, here in the same venue, a play called The Second Coming of Nkrumah was shown, which champions economic emancipation. Therefore, I think this panel, which focuses on infrastructure development and unleashing potential of AFCFTA, really hits the bullseye. Faced with challenges unseen in a century, more than ever does Africa need to strengthen infrastructure across the board to foster connectivity, unity, and strength. Let's seize the moment to jointly advance integration, and let the light of Pan-Africanism from President Nkrumah shine on the entire African continent. Thank you for your attention.
Your Excellency Tom Defa, thank you, but don't go too far because you're coming back on the panel. And ladies and gentlemen, just a quick announcement that when we do go out for lunch in the next hour or so, we have a fabulous food court. A lot of the food you desire will be there. And also, we're taking you on an African tour with our food and of course with Projet Afrique. So please, by all means, take advantage of our lunch break in about an hour or so and explore all that APD and APN is bringing to you. It's genuinely a trip around Africa. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to take off from where His Excellency Tom Defa left off, talking about the role of Africa's infrastructural development partners in building the single market, please allow me to bring to the stage the moderator for this session, the CEO of Apples and Pears and creator of the Ladies Entrepreneurship Club, who will take us into a critical conversation on Africa's integration while we focus on infrastructure building. Please welcome Tonisha Tate.